Very good. Good afternoon and welcome to this special Kentville Town Council meeting of June 24th, 2025. I call this meeting to order. We have regrets from Councillor Andrew, Councillor Hamilton, and Councillor Savage. However, we do have quorum. We have a proposed agenda in front of us. I am going to propose two changes. Item 3A is going to change to Canada Day. Item 3B is going to change to tender results. And item 3C will be the draft Town of Kentville 25-26 operating budget. Any other changes, CAO? Someone could move that. Deputy Mayor Kroll, seconded by Councillor Maxwell. All those in favor signify by raising. Those opposed, motion is carried. Are there any conflict of interest issues that we should be made aware of today? There being none, we will move right along to Canada Day. There had been discussion amongst council to host something on Canada Day, so I have a motion in front of me that I'll read, and then if you want to debate it, we can. The motion would be for council to direct the CAO to carry out planning for Canada Day festivities on July 1st, 2025, including opening of the Kentville pool with free swim, cake, and bouncy castles. Any questions or? Yeah, that would be great. Moved by Deputy Mayor Kroll and seconded by Councillor Maxwell. Yes, go ahead, CAO.
Just for clarification, we've asked that this come to council because it was not in the budget, in the draft budget, and would be, so really we're looking to say is there is an events budget, so within your motion, is this to increase the estimated cost approximately $5,000? Are you asking to increase the budget or asking us to reduce other events planned for the rest of the year?
Any?
That would be up to the department.
Right.
Take the money.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll stick to this motion then. And Pat, yeah, do you have any other comments, Council? Councillor Baker.
I think any celebration of Canada Day is a good idea, but knowing that we still have yet to look at the operations budget, I would support doing it within the operations budget that we already have in front of us.
Well, the only issue with that is that more than likely the budget's not going to be passed today. More than likely, and Canada Day's in a week, so staff would have to prepare and have all this done within a week. So,
but is that the expectation? I'm just saying that we don't change the budget as
for other
today.
activities.
Yeah, that we do it within the existing budget that we have already.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah, that would work for me if you. Yeah, does that work for you?
Yes.
Okay.
It does sacrifice other events.
It could, right? Yeah.
It does.
Right.
It does.
Right.
What is our events budget proposed for 2025-26?
Hello. So our event budget is 20,000. So this is a quarter of it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
If we take out 5,000, it would impact, say, Harvest Fest, holidays, those type of events that we have already budgeted. Or we'd be looking for the budget go from 20 to 25,000 to be able to accommodate this request from council.
Okay. Well, we could look at that, I guess, when we go through the budget. I think we'll figure that. With a budget like that, I mean, $5,000 is not a huge, yeah. Yes, go ahead.
Can I ask what exactly is making up the $5,000? I know we have cake. What else did it say? And bouncy castle. So what else is making up that? What's the budget breakdown?
So we have bouncy castles, which will be in the range of around 3,000 or more. There is a deposit as well, so it is calling for rain and thunderstorms on the July 1st. So if it is canceled because of thunderstorms, we do lose that deposit of around $1,000. We've made a commitment to Kentville Senior Baseball to provide a donation for free access to their space and their game for July 1st. We have equipment that we're purchasing to ensure that we have a play space for parents and families to enjoy. And then on top of that, we would have the free access to the pool, which wouldn't come out of that budget. That's something totally separate.
Councillor Maxwell.
Yes, through you to the director, just wondering if it's rain and thunderstorms, is there anything going on in the rink that we could maybe set this up in the rink so that we can continue with the event?
There's nothing in the arena.
There's nothing in the arena, so that would be a good alternate plan.
If we just wanted to host bouncy castles and give out cake, yeah.
And cake, yeah. I don't see us doing anything else. We can't swim there, so, yeah.
And the splash pad as well, that's
Yeah.
going to be open as well.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, so we still have that motion on the floor. Are you still good with? Yeah, you still, you moved it, and you're still good as a seconder?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I'll call for the question then. For council to direct the CAO to carry out planning for Canada Day festivities on July 1st, 2025, including opening of the Kentville pool with free swim, cake, and bouncy castles. No. You want me to hear? They're here. Are they starting, are they a little bit?
Oh, I was just at
And voting is now open. There we go. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried. Thank you. We'll now move on to tender results, and we'll invite Director Bell up to the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon. I guess it still is, Mayor and Council. Just wanted to share these tender results from two large projects that we tendered together, closed last Friday. They are the grid storm and sidewalk project, which is on the south side of Main Street, this first year of a potential two-year phase, assuming that the province has a second year of funding, which we applied for 2 years worth of. This first year's phase would be from essentially a new sidewalk and storm sewer on the south side from the liquor store to Prospect Avenue. So that stretch would start with the storm sewer replacement and then new curbing and ultimately new sidewalk. And then we would tie the second part of that into the paving project, which the province has funded through transportation. 50% funding, which was in our capital project, for up to $1 million of paving. We've already paved about $108,000 worth of trunk paving on Bridge Street and on Main down by Chester. So that left 881,000. Well, left more than that actually. Left nearly 900,000 of paving to spend to make the $1 million jointly funded portion of the project. And then the grid is 1.33 million. Tender results came in at 1.27, which left the project $57,000 under budget. So both projects came in under for a total under amount of roughly 68,000, which leaves us some contingency for unknowns which you may encounter while doing especially that underground portion of the old storm sewer on the south side. So following our procurement policy, as both projects are council approved capital projects and under budget, we plan to award these two 50% funded projects to Dexter Construction Company Limited for $2,154,876, including the non-recoverable portion of the HST, utilizing as much of the funding as possible and to meet construction timelines. So this isn't, I guess, a recommendation. It was more of an FYI to council that these projects closed last week and we're on budget, and we want to award that ASAP. We did, as I mentioned, I guess at the beginning, we had three bids, all fairly competitive, ranging from that 2.154 to 2.643, and we're going to award that to Dexter unless there are any other concerns or questions from council.
Thank you, Director Bell. That's great to hear, so I'm excited to see that happen. Any questions or comments? Councillor Baker.
Thank you for that, for the information. What's the timeline after awarding to, are there different phases? Are they, because I appreciate how you've, managed the in and out depending on what's going on.
Yeah, it's two projects, as I mentioned, sort of rolled into one area. I'm glad you did ask that question, Councillor, because it does, with the paving project, we'll be doing the section from the liquor store, essentially where that storm sewer doesn't start, but that's the low point. It comes from both directions and then goes north down Aberdeen Street at the liquor store, large storm sewer. That's the old galvanized corrugated pipe that I've mentioned that's throughout town from the early 80s, end of life pipe. So that's being replaced with concrete pipe. That'll be the biggest time component of the project, laying that storm sewer from essentially that storm sewer by the crosswalk at lights at the liquor store going down towards Aberdeen, but heading all the way to Prospect. And then they'll follow that with the curbing and then the sidewalk and then ultimately the paving. The paving, I didn't mention this, but the paving will do all of Main from the Aberdeen intersection at the lights to Prospect. Then a sort of a second part, which they can do ahead of time, is just paving from that point of Prospect to the bridge at Millbrook, where we sort of did this small section this past May, where the rough section was. And then we'll potentially skip that little section of the bridge, which is, I still argue, was the province's bridge, so they didn't want us years ago to be on it. Now they say it's ours, so we're still in discussion with that. But then we would start again at the east side of the bridge and go all the way to Southview, big section of Main. That left us with about $150,000 unspent of the million. So the next logical place in my mind was to finish where we stopped in May at Bridge Street in Webster, where we tied in there. By then, the other contractor who's doing the sidewalk on the north side of Webster in front of Chisholm's and the Royal Bank will be done. So we'll come in behind them, mill out Webster Street from Bridge to basically to Patty's, where we did the section 5 years ago. So that section will all be new asphalt. So it'll be the loop around town, except for Aberdeen, will be Main, Bridge, and Webster will be all new pavement, and then the section from the clock here all the way to Southview. And ideally, if we do get to, who knows, they say it's a multi-year program through the province for funding. If we are successful, we'll do more, ideally again in subsequent years.
So what you've laid out there, is that just for this summer through to November?
This summer, it'll take us through. We have a completion date. They can still be paving well into November. We have, I think, a November 30th sort of timeline to be complete. Ideally, I think they can be, if everything goes well, they should be done hopefully before then. We haven't received a schedule yet. Yeah. It hasn't been awarded. It's just closed last Friday. But that's part of the criteria, would be to give us a project schedule. But ultimately, I think it reads as November the 28th or something in the contract.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Director Bell.
Thank you.
So we'll now move on to the draft operating budget for 25-26.
Thank you, Mayor. Just the last budget updates we had, we were showing a projected deficit of just under 800,000. And so staff, we've gone back, looking at if there were any major category areas that we could reasonably tackle to try to reduce that. We've come up with 4 so far. So the first one would be to withdraw $150,000 from the operating reserve for Valley Waste Resource Management. And we're recommending that because the producer responsibility program that's going to be coming in effect should see our commitment for the cost of solid waste reduce substantially in 26-27. So we felt it was logical, because we've built up a fair bit in that reserve, that we could withdraw 150,000 this year to bring us down to that level for 25, 26 to be the same as what they're projecting for 26, 27. So it's not, we see it as a one-time cost we can offset. We don't like using reserves for repeating costs where we think it's one time, and the projection is for it to be a lower amount going forward. Second, within the draft budget, there was the $100,000 request from the Annapolis Valley Mountain Bike Association, where you're facing a large budget deficit. We believe this is an increase in service at a time when you're probably can't afford to provide new services, particularly with pressures on things like stormwater, the street repairs, et cetera. So we're recommending that that can't be supported in this year's operating budget. Third was the recreation master plan. And you'll see in the memo, we recommended that we phase it over 2 years. So 50,000 in 1 year, 50 in another. We had further discussions around the management table this morning. And we feel where we're this late in the budget season already, by the time you get some strategic planning done in the next couple months, by the time you gear up to start a recreation master plan, you're probably not going to be able to do half of the project in 25, 26. We'd probably recommend that we do sort of a 20-80 split. That if you're going to do the study, you spend 20,000 in this year's budget and 80 in next year's. But you have to be ready for that 60,000 increase next year. And finally, there was an amount put in the budget to transfer to the critical incident reserve for police services. There was 38,000 was in there. We're recommending that be reduced by 23,000 down to 15. We'd like to be able to put the full 38 in, but again, it's tough in these budget times to start putting a lot in the operating reserve. So we felt 15 we could manage with this year. So the combined effect of those four, now that we've adjusted, if we adjust for that change in the recreation master plan, that would leave us with a budget deficit of about 441,000. So which is in the neighborhood of a 5.5 cent increase on residential rate and 12 and change if you keep the rates in proportion to each other the way they have been on the commercial. Now, we fully understand that's a hard swallow. That's a big amount. But but it is tough to find. It's going to be tough to find a lot of that. You know, we would kind of like a target to try to cut it in half if we could, but it's not going to be easy. So, for example, as we saw in the original drafts of the budget, when you go back and try to do some sore thumb exercises, when you look at our total increased tax revenue from the increased assessment based on the current rates, that generates 527,000. But your as a result of collective bargaining, the non-union increases, the significant increase in the group benefits plans, that expense, takes, and the 138,000 modest increase in the staffing complement, which is less than 2 people, it almost is exactly offsets. It's 526 extra cost just for the compensation piece. There's commitments in this budget to other governments and agencies, such as transit, solid waste, the big one being education, to the school board, is well over 200,000, but all those over multiple entities is an increase in your budget, 382,000 on the expense side. And then really when you get down into what we actually do, the two significant expense increases are 76,000 for street repairs We all know what we went through this spring. They're needed, just to try to get the potholes on the main roads, the high traffic areas fixed. We've got a good chunk of them done, but there still will be another phase to come back and complete the work. And we increased the stormwater maintenance budget by 25,000. We were feeling was the message coming out of your stormwater management study, and the feedback we're getting from the citizens is that we have to increase our maintenance of those systems to try to make things better for future heavy rain events. And then you go through the rest of the expense budget, it's pretty much flat. There may be a few expenses that are up, there may be a few expenses are down, and they almost exactly offset each other. Now, as always, when you get into a budget of this size, when you round off your tax rates, et cetera, if we get down to $30,000 to $40,000 left of deficit, we can go back and scrounge and scrape and make little adjustments here and there and probably come up with it. Hope we have a few things come under budget. You could have a couple position vacancies for a couple months and, maybe get it back that way. So what we're looking for guidance at this point, because we're limited in what we can do within the budget without affecting levels of service or tax rates. And those are in the purview of council. Those are not management decisions. So if there are some services you are willing to curtail, we could save money that way. Or we have to increase tax rates. It's a hard reality facing a lot of towns. Many have been fortunate enough to be able to flatline their taxes. Some have had to do some harsh increases, but Antigonish, for example, had to do a huge increase, but that was mainly due to changes that the UARB made to allow Nova Scotia Power to suck more money out of those towns who were participating in the wind projects. So a lot of their profits that they were counting on from that disappeared with the UARB rulings. So that's an unusual increase. And that's why we're not in that boat, because we didn't have that situation. But Berwick, for example, did a 5 and 5 increase. Our other neighbors, Kings and Wolfville, were flat. So on the rates, the education one is always painful in a year like this because the uniform assessment lags a year behind when you see it. So we're paying for last year's assessment increase this year of assessable revenue, and our enrollment is actually up of students in the town of Kentville. So those two factors means our education is going up more than you would anticipate beyond regular inflation. So I guess what we're looking for guidance in is there a level of increase that council can be comfortable with? And then once we determine that, is what services are you willing to compromise to get some further reductions in the expense load?
Thank you, CAO. Any questions for CAO at this time? Deputy Mayor Kroll.
Yes, so thank you. Through you to the CAO. The town hall consulting fees under administration is $70,000. That still is in this budget?
Refer to the director. She knows the individual line items.
The 50,000 for the town hall and recreation center accessibility is in there. That's 50. There's 20,000 in there for an HR needs assessment, combined in the same account to 70, in case you're looking at the previous detailed admin budget.
It's 20,000 for the human resources.
Correct.
And 50,000 for the town hall accessibility study.
Correct.
Is it possible that we can have the accessibility study deferred?
The accessibility study is funded in there through reserve. So if we remove it, then there would be an offsetting reduction in the reserve coming in, but it would be available for something else. Yes.
It's still an option.
Yes.
Why is there not a withdrawal from the KTA reserve to make up the difference or the increase? Let me see, what was the increase in KTA?
Yeah, I think with
So
that
it's-
one, I didn't put it in my list of changes,
Yeah.
but there's going to be another,
There is,
a 28 increase in the KTA budget has to go through in a 28 reduction of reserve, but we don't want to take it, we don't want to completely deplete the reserve. That would cut it in about half.
yeah. So
But that's the purpose of the reserve. The reserve is set up to offset increases. And it's been a couple of years, maybe 3 or 4 years that they've had surpluses that's built up over the past 10 years
Yeah.
or so.
it's,
So does it matter that you take it out now or?
so could I just clarify? The KTA reserve that's in there now is 54,000 from a surplus from last year. We did remove the 28,000 in the document that you received in preparation for today, and the 28,000 from that reserve is coming out. So that would leave 54 less 28 in the reserve for future.
You're saying 24 plus 50?
28,000
Take away from
is going to be
54.
an increase to
It's going
that
to be left with
budget.
about 26.
Correct.
in the
It would be what's
reserve.
remaining.
And there may be, with all the changes, being party to a lot of the IMSA boards, like, there could be some other significant cost drivers hitting us that may not be fully budgeted for, so we could, even with the increase, we're worried that they're gonna have a deficit. They could face a deficit because of all the repair problems they've had
Probably
further,
will.
so.
Yes, it's not uncommon for them. So are you saying that you don't recommend taking anything out of that reserve to
Well,
help offset?
We just said we're taking 28,000
Okay,
out of
it's
the
a little
reserve.
confusing as to the numbers that you're,
It's 28 we're recommending come out.
but it's not in your list.
It would be in the transfers, so in the transfer list, the funding is coming in and the 28,000 is
Well,
included in
that
the
was in the
cost.
past budget, that wasn't in anything new.
No, it was a net zero, so I didn't bother putting it in this report, because it
Okay.
didn't change the deficit. It had no effect on the deficit.
All right, I gotcha. All right. As far as tax rates go for what you've proposed, 12 cents on commercial just isn't going to fly for me. The town of Kentville has spent 10 years or more reducing the commercial tax rate in this town for the purpose of keeping those storefronts and those small businesses operating. A 12-cent tax increase for banks or any of the larger businesses, the grocery store, for example, may not be that cause that much damage to them. However, but for the mom and pop stores around, mom and pop in quotes, stores around town, that we worked really hard on trying to keep the brown paper off those windows. It's a hardship. I just can't support anything related to a commercial tax increase, or if there is a commercial tax increase, it would be like 1 cent, which is only $8,000, give or take. Anyway, it's just, we're trying to keep our downtown as vibrant as possible, keep those businesses operating, and I think this would be very harmful to them. Thank you very much.
Councillor Maxwell.
Well, thank you. I'm just wondering, the HR needs assessment, what is that about?
So we recall, the 3 towns and decided to go ahead with the HR assessment to see, we identified that there was a need, and we don't have a
Yeah, we do
dedicated
have a
HR
need.
person, to try to look at if there's a way we can do HR better, and if there's a way we can do it collaboratively and share the cost
Okay.
of maybe 1 HR person. So that has already been awarded to Doane Grant Thornton. It just hasn't started yet because we're waiting on to see what level of funding
Okay.
we will get, and we're hoping to hear next week on what, if any, funding we're gonna have? Because we may have to scale back to try to stay within that budget allocation
Yeah.
on their scope.
Yeah. Deputy Mayor mentioned the other things that I was looking at. I hate to bring it up, but we do have a perpetual fund with about $14 million in there, and we're only mandated to have 10 million in there. I think this is an exceptional year, and I would like to look at taking some of that out of there and using it to balance us up for this year. I also look at, and I hate to say it as well, but I think we need to go to bare bones. What do we need here? And I think we have to look at everything. I believe that we just maintain what we already have as far as facilities. And I think that there's just no room for extras. And I think that we need, as a staff, to identify where the excess is and take it right down to nothing. We don't want any excess. What do we need to meet our obligations for these external commitments and partnerships? What do we need to look after the stormwater plan? What do we need to, make sure we've got snow removal and stormwater maintenance? And I think we have to go right down to where are we spending all our money? And I think that's a tough pill to swallow. But I know exactly when another business or another operation or another organization is looking at what we're facing. I know in education exactly where those cuts would be made. I can't have a 12% increase in tax for our businesses. As Deputy Mayor says, we want to make sure we don't have businesses closing in our downtown core. And I also think even a 5% increase on residential is going to hurt our residential customers at a time when we don't need to put any more grief on them, if we can support that. So I think we have to go and we have to cut and we have to look at the bare bones. And that's for staff to decide where the fat is. And we need to get rid of it. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Baker?
Thank you, Your Worship, to the CAO. Do we know what the average property value is in Kentville of a residential property? So we can calculate what a new tax burden might be for an average property, so that we can look at not only the proposed 5 or 10 cent, whatever it happens to be, but also we know that we have potential sewer and water increase coming up. We've got a 7% education increase as well, so that we can look at that increase in overall tax burden, not just operating capital. Is there a value that we know that we can just use to model with? Is it 400,000 and 380? $350, give or take?
That's my
That's average. I'm looking at all the people that are under average in this town.
We do get those numbers. I was just looking to see if I have my files. It'll take me another minute. There's a lot of paper there. But we do get from them what the average sale price has been in the last year. And we do get from them what the average home is at certain years. So based on a certain age. So we would have that data from them. We get every December.
My concern is that that's only the houses that have been sold, right? So the
It
caps
would
come off?
be, it would be both. We would have both.
Oh,
We
so
would
we
have,
both?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that a good place to start, you think?
And we would have provided that, some of that information in the previous presentation, just to let you know what that average cost would be. So if it was 1 cent, this is what it would look like.
Right.
I just can't put my fingers on it, but we can certainly do that. Absolutely.
That'd be great. And,
Yep.
and do we have a guesstimate as to what sewer and water is gonna be?
Well, that's the
You are.
the sewer is the scary one.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll be up front with you on that. It is easily
Sorry, what was the?
40% probably
40%.
for sewer.
Yeah.
Ouch.
And then when the water rate study's done too, that's another,
Yes.
I'm not expecting that one to be as severe, but there will be
An increase,
increases on water,
yeah.
but not as severe.
Because if we have a plan for what, as we pointed out, if we have a plan for what the upcoming future looks like as far as cost to the resident, then it's a lot easier to get behind something rather than just, here's this, okay, and then 3 months later, here's this, and then 3 months later, here's this. We need to have an idea of what's coming for the Kentville residents so I can properly budget for taxes. I think we could get behind something if we knew what the plan was. Overall, like not just operations, capital, sewer, water.
thank you. We've all chimed in, so I'll chime in. I remember sitting here 2 years in a row, and we had, did the exact same thing, and there was, the assessments had risen, as they did everywhere. And we got these big, large, and I'm still gonna call them windfalls, people don't like that word, but to me, they were windfalls of 1.5 or 1.4 million each year. And I remember one year I sat there, because they had done it in West Hanson, and I said, let's drop the tax, and nobody went with that. Looking back now, wouldn't it have been great to take that $3 million over the 2 years and put half of it or 80% of it in a reserve? Instead, most of it was put back into the budget, and a lot of it was just spent because it was there, and I am gonna say that because I sat on this council, that's my opinion. I won't support these increases, I can't. I don't think that's fair to the public because we sat here as a council for 4 years and perhaps some of the decisions weren't right surrounding the money, and I don't have an answer right now, CEO, I'm sorry, but I can't support these increases, and I would echo Councillor Maxwell and Deputy Mayor Kroll to try to find a way, whether it is even touching into that perpetual fund a little bit, and cutting back a little bit somewhere on that budget. I just can't do that to the people in this town, so thank you. Any other comments, or you don't need any direction or anything?
Well, I guess we haven't turned our mind necessarily to the perpetual one, so that's something we have to look at based on the original conditions. So.
And I don't know I don't know in the history if we've ever, you would know this answer, have we ever touched that in, never, not even for 100,000 or 200, never? Okay. Director Matthews?
Are
Yeah.
you speaking to the capital within the perpetual fund?
No,
Oh, sorry.
yeah.
I just wanted to remind folks that the perpetual fund revenue, we did increase what we
Right.
wanted to take out of that fund by 100,000, and so it's 560 going into capital. And from an I know Councillor Savage isn't here, but from an investment committee point of view, the portfolio is set so that we can get the 560 out to generate that 560. So I would think if we were going to do something around the actual earnings on the fund, that we would have to make some
Changes.
decisions and changes around that strategy fairly quickly to be able to see that
Yeah.
transfer come forward. So I just wanted to add that in. Thank you.
Thank you. So did you need any, what?
Well, no, we'll go back and look at that one.
Okay.
Again, it would help to have more guidance on if there are particular programs or services. That is where council's decision is. We can look at, as I say, are there some fine tuning in the delivery of service to help reduce cost a bit? But, when we go through and you start paring down, you know, for example, many of the recreation programs, some of them actually generate money more than they cost. So we're not gonna go after those services necessarily. There's a few of those. But again, a lot of them are, so we have to, you know, what is, when you say core, is what does council's definition of core, what do you think is non-core? That's what we're trying to get at here, is we don't want to be guessing what you feel is core and non-core, because we can run in all different directions, but it's the age-old debate through all budgets, you know, for 30-some years I've been involved in these, is trying to get and say, what's the core service, what's the extra service? Do you still want that as the extra, or are you willing to forego that service to the residents to keep the taxes down? And that's the essence, to get at the bigger dollars.
Any other questions, folks, or?
You know, I'll use the other.
Yeah.
It just I'll use an example which has come up. There is a big difference in service level between rural municipalities and towns, particularly when it comes to things like snow removal. So are the residents willing to give up having their subdivision street plowed during a storm and wait till the storm is over like they do in the rurals, or that we're constantly going through streets every few hours as the storm goes? That costs money. Often drives a fair bit of overtime. That's a service level decision. Are you willing to, that, particularly in a bad winter, that can make a big difference. It's hard to, you know, you have contraction, you know, your union agreement, so you're expected to have these many people working on public works. We save where we can on times, and they're back and saying, well, why isn't this position full? Well, we don't need it full right now. We'll probably have to fill it later. You know, we try to get the savings where we can, but those are you know, it's tough to do, to say, are we not going to go out and do certain activities that you're used to seeing our crews out doing every day? Is it going to be every second day, every third day? Is it going to be once a month as opposed to every 2 weeks? So those are the tough decisions. When you say you want us to do the tough decisions, those will be the things we'll look. Those, you might see some of that come back as maybe as unpopular as they are, to try to address some of this, because it's a big dollar figure.
Councillor Baker.
Thank you. I think we're at a point right now where we need to have those discussions about what this council sees overall as our large mission. And I think with the change in CAO, we may have those strategic planning discussions to see what everybody around this table sees as the vision. We're down by 3 important members right now, and this, I take it, was to be an information gathering session, which is great. But I think we need to get that strategic discussion up first, and then go from there and plan as to exactly what do we want to see, what are our core businesses, what businesses do we want to be involved in, and then make the recommendations. I mean, appreciate the staff can only do so much. You know, I could start with a whole list of questions here, but honestly, I think we need to have those big discussions first.
It's just, we're in a bit of a time crunch.
So do you need an operational budget?
You have tax bills that normally go out at a certain time of year, so.
August or September? Or?
Yeah, August. It takes a week of work.
Oh, I agree. Their timelines are going to be tight.
To get, you know, do all the reconciliation, make sure there's no errors in the billing, et cetera. So it's how fast you're going to have a strategic plan done.
Yeah.
And the later you leave it in the year, you know.
Well, it doesn't have to be a plan, but it has to be priorities.
Yeah.
So that we can all agree.
Hopefully you get there quick.
Yeah.
You know, that's I can't control that, obviously, at this point, but it's just, I'm going to strongly urge you that you make that happen sooner rather than later so that we can get through these issues. People can move on, get some things out, that some of our finance people can actually get some vacation this summer. You know, after dealing with audit and everything else and budgets. So let's, you know, there is, I just can't emphasize enough, there's a sense of urgency here. People want to get on with doing, running their departments and knowing what they have to operate their departments on.
I guess, CEO, if I could chime in, my wish would be, and you all will have the ability to join me if you want, but my wish would be to not raise the tax rates this year. So, and I guess I have to leave that with staff, because some of these projects, I'm not gonna pick through each one, and they know their departments, they know what has to be done. So I'm gonna channel back to what Councillor Maxwell said, if we can find a way to tap into some more of the investment fund, and if we can, maybe some of that, and the other part could be to trim some of the stuff on here that some of the departments know that isn't, you know, it's kind of gravy, some of it might be, I hate to use that word, but some of it could be a little extra that maybe isn't typically done in a year and doesn't need to be there. Well, I guess that'd be a starting point, and probably you'll have to pass that off to CEO McNeil, I guess, to follow up, but that's where I am at. I'm not gonna support any tax increases in either residential or commercial, so the rest of you, I guess you probably should chime in if you are or aren't, and that'll be probably enough for you to, yeah, I would, we know what will go around. Deputy Mayor Kroll.
Oh, thank you. I would like to have the staff go through their budgets and really take a sharp pencil to them, and find, it might be $500 here, $500 there, but it all adds up. And I really would like to have confidence that the amounts that we're approving are actually what we actually need, not what we want or what we'd like to have, but what we need this year. This is an unusual year. We don't know how, we know that it's a tough year for a lot of people financially, and we don't know how tariffs are going to affect our businesses and that type of thing, or affect our citizens for that matter. So I really think this is a year that they're going to have really sharp pencils and go through each of those lines, and they're going to have to find whether they do need that money or they can cut a little bit from it and still operate a level of service that is acceptable to us.
Thank you. Councillor Maxwell.
Yeah, it's tough. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'd like to go back, roll the clock back 8 years, 9 years, and what did we have then? And what was the service we were delivering them? What did we have under operations? Roll it back and see. We've got to go forward on storm water management. We've got to maintain the facilities we already have and the programs that have been here for decades. And what have we added over 9 years that we can roll back? And that might be ending some of the newer programs, but maintaining what was there and what the citizens are used to having that long ago. As far as tax increase, I'm tolerable for a little bit, 1.5 for this year, but I wouldn't go over that. So I think it's just it's tough decisions by directors and administrators, and it's not easy. I can appreciate that, and I can appreciate the work that's gone into this, and I think that we've come a long way over 8 years, but do we need every single thing we've added over eight or 9 years? That's the question. Because we were operating very well as a town, reasonably well to that point. The thing that I remember the most when I first came on council was the paper on the store windows. That's what I remember the most. But as far as services go and everything else, you know, that was fine. So, you know, I'm kind of willing to roll back and lose a few programs and whatever else needs to happen. But, you know, this is, it's not easy. I can appreciate for every director and every administrator here that this is not easy. But every organization is looking at this type of thing as far as I'm concerned. General Motors, you know, everybody is looking at this type of thing. And, you know, what do? You know what to do. So.
Thank you. Councillor Baker?
I'm sorry, did I have my mic on?
No, you're
Yeah.
you're in agreement that you're not content with these hikes. That's basically what we're looking for.
Well, I need to know what the burden is so I can get behind it. That's kind of my point as a taxpayer, but as, you know, if we're going to look at Kentville, I look at a deteriorating infrastructure for the last 50 years or more that hasn't been looked after, and by deferring maintenance that needs to be done, Kentville is crumbling. And I think that's not what we want here. I think that, I agree very much so that we don't want brown paper in our downtown core. But the reality is we have to pay for the services that we get. I just want to know what the burden would be if we had to fund this through a tax increase. Completely, the whole tax burden, not just a piece of a tax burden, but the sewer, the water, the existing on an average property, so that I'm looking at, you know, Kentville's tax rate, you know, is low compared to the mean or the median for towns our size with a municipal police force. And, you know, that's attractive. That brings people to Kentville. It doesn't drive them out to Kings County. So I'm willing to be open-minded about this, but I know what we've been doing has not been good for Kentville in as far as deferring investment, deferring infrastructure repairs. That doesn't work decade after decade. And I think if we look at not having increases over the last few years, doesn't do anybody any justice, because it sticks us with a huge increase once we get there, right? Well, we can only defer so long. So I think we have to take some responsibility for it.
Okay. Need anything else from us? Okay. I guess that concludes the day. Take a motion to adjourn. Deputy Mayor Kroll and a seconder. Councillor Baker. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion's carried at 5:56. Oh, 4:56. Thank you very much.